Is he charmed by China? Kamala Harris's pick for Vice President, Governor Tim Walz, one of the first government-sanctioned Americans to teach in the country, and Walz later honeymooned in China with his wife Gwen, bringing a group of 60 young people with them on one trip. National correspondent Alana Austin joins us live right now on Capitol Hill. And Alana, he's reportedly taken more than 24 trips to China.
Hi, good afternoon, Bianca. And certainly Republicans here on Capitol Hill are worried about Tim Walz's record. And as you mentioned there, extensive travel to China. Now, the records show he spent time in the country at least since 1989. So you see there is that decades-long affinity for this foreign adversary. And as you mentioned, we first hear of him going to China, hopping on a plane as one of the first government-sanctioned Americans to teach in the country. He's now 60 years old, and we know that Walz headed over there through a program set up by Harvard University. He taught in the Guangdong province, and an article even quoting Walz is saying he was never treated so well as when he was over there. He was showered with so many gifts, he couldn't bring them back home. And there's also newspaper clippings resurfacing and exposing that he wanted to pick a wedding date that would always be remembered by him and his now wife Gwen. So they decided to get married on the 5th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre in Beijing. And again, they did honeymoon in China. Well, while in Congress, Walz sat down for this discussion with AgriPulse. This is listed as being from September 2016. He estimates that he went to China about 30 times. Take a listen.
If someone tells you they're an expert on China, they're probably not telling you the truth, because it's a complex country. But it's critically important for us that I've been able to talk to the Chinese, because when we're on the same sheet of music, the world's, two of the world's great superpowers, there's many collaborative things we can do together.
Walz saying that America's relationship with Beijing need not be adversarial, but there are still concerns, according to Indiana Republican Congressman Jim Banks. He's penned a new letter to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, arguing these numerous trips pose an obvious security risk. He also says there are concerns about hostile foreign intelligence activity. Now, he's demanding more information from the Pentagon, and he's probing whether Walz violated international travel disclosure requirements while in uniform. So Banks is a veteran himself. He served in the Afghanistan war. He was called out of the U.S. Naval Reserves. And he's essentially saying that superiors should have known about all the time Walz was spending in China. Was he upfront and transparent about the nature of these trips? He's also worried there was some type of issue, given he would have had access during those years to classified information. Bianca?
Well, a lot of trips there, more than usual there for sure. Alana Austin, thank you so much. And pleased to bring in right now Trump 2016 campaign advisor, author, and Newsmax foreign policy analyst, Dr. Waleed Phares, to discuss these ties to communist China, and Glenn Ignazio, also a security Air Force Special Operations Commander and a national security expert. Good to see you, Glenn.
Great to see you, Bianca. How you doing?
I'm good. I think that there's a question about this man's character when it comes to stolen valor, and then all these ties, and he was a teacher, and we worry about indoctrination at our campuses, and the fact he just seems to be so enamored, not just with the culture, possibly bringing it in here and spreading these ideals. What is your biggest red flag when you look at these trips, the wedding date to coincide with Tiananmen Square anniversary? That seems like an unusual obsession.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting to see what that relationship is. A little bit referred to about when he was in service with the Guard and travel internationally. Well, look, I was on active duty and finished with the Guard, traveled internationally. And what I had to do is I had a brief where I was going. Once I went there and came back, I had a debrief of what I experienced, who I connected with, and so forth. That is a requirement when you have a security clearance and you're still in uniform. So that's going to be a big thing to watch to see if he's done that. If he hasn't, that definitely seems like there's something malicious or not quite right there. But at the same time, being a Democrat that he is, we see that same thing with the Democrats. With Kamala coming out of California, we saw Newsom laying out the red carpet when San Francisco was in despair, rolling out the red carpet, cleaning it up just for Xi Jinping to come in. So it is interesting how we see such a close knit with the Democrats, and now with Walz connected to China.
Yes, and again, their reluctance to do news conferences. I mean, all of this could be, if there was nothing to be concerned about, they could just have transparency and say, here it is. But her dodging of the press now 24 days, they put this bubble wrap effectively around her. And here we go into the Democratic National Convention. Clock running out for people here and the voters. I do want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on with the breaking news about the ceasefire. Okay, Hamas says they won't go in person. Who is running our country right now, though? Joe Biden is going to go to this event near the White House, but he was at the beach over the weekend. You have Blinken canceling his trip to the Middle East. So much uncertainty in this conflict, and also what's going on between Russia and Ukraine making some very big moves there. These are things that we cannot be asleep at the wheel for.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it is a great question, is who is running the White House? And we've always had that question with Biden, but at the same time, he completely seems like he's checked out. Kamala is sort of acting like she's the president already, and she's just on the campaign trail. So who is actually running the country has always been a question, I think, before, but it is even emphasized and clearer now. And yes, you do have the Ukrainians that have actually penetrated in Russia, and Putin's not happy with that. And we also see what's going on in Gaza. So with Iran threatening them greatly, who's at the wheel? That's a big question. I think that's a big concern for all of us. And if people aren't listening, they need to wake up to it.
They do. Biden yesterday made a few comments. We'll play this when he was asked about the situation in the Middle East and Iran's imminent attack.
If you can still get to a ceasefire deal, or is that starting to be a distant possibility?
It's getting hard. We'll see what Iran does, and we'll see what happens if there's any attack. But I'm not giving up.
Are those two things tied together? Do you have the understanding that Iran could cease or stop doing an action if a ceasefire deal was possible?
That's my expectation, but we'll see. Thank you.
Oh, we'll see what Iran does. That's not clearly projecting strength. You know, tomorrow is third anniversary of the Taliban seizing power, and there's some new video. We'll be getting it fresh out in a few minutes about they're just parading all the military hardware, everything we left behind. And that was a critical mistake, a critical base. Not only did the botched withdrawal lead to all this unrest, many say, Glenn, and we can point back to that, but that was a critical base because of where it was and where it was when it poses potential access into China and where we were stationed there. To let that go and let the amount of all this expensive equipment behind. I mean, that was a mistake of epic proportions. And this is the video.
Yeah, you're
right
absolutely
here.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, a couple of years ago, it was a lot of veterans, man, and others you've heard. I was involved in getting people out of Afghanistan as well because that debacle seems like anything that's touched internationally by this administration seems to get screwed up, like it or not. The other thing is the Taliban's one of the biggest exporters and seller of weapons, which is all U.S. equipment worldwide to terrorist organizations. Interesting, since we're talking about China greatly, Bagram Air Base, which should have never been shut before the withdrawal, is actually taken over, and the Chinese are moving in there very well to set up bases and do deals for natural resources in Afghanistan, which is something that we really never looked at in a strategic standpoint in the last 4 years.
Yeah, they're getting closer and closer. And here they are, that video. They're just parading everything we left behind, just thumbing it in our face there. This is disgraceful. Harris, Walz, need to answer for this. Not sure they will. What would be your pressing question here? And why isn't the media more, not us obviously, but the liberal media, why aren't they more interested in getting to the bottom of these two here and their radical policies, especially in light of the danger it poses to us and our national security, our global security?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know what seems to be the case right now is, for example, you see Kamala state a statement like, oh, we're going to get tough on the borders and so forth. And we do have a significant amount, 125 on the terrorist watch list that have come in the United States. But she says that now everybody gets focused on that, saying that's great, but you don't realize that she was the one that's responsible for the last 3+ years. So while people are latching on to the present day comment of what I'm going to change, they're losing track. And this is one thing that can't be forgotten. And these are the individuals that have been responsible and are responsible for doing this, from Afghanistan, Ukraine, what's going on in Gaza, and our completely shambled border that has let all these threats in. It is real. It is not a conspiracy theory, and they're responsible. And people can't forget about that,
Well said.
Especially when November comes around.
Well said. Glenn Ignazio, always appreciate your thoughtful analysis. Thanks for joining us here today.
Absolutely. Take care, Bianca.